Hello, hello everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Misfits Racing League. We are finally back to you with a live broadcast for the Endurance Series. It's round number 11, and joining me this week for a 100% endurance endeavor, Unicorn. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. I can't wait to see these guys go around Japan. It's a track. I mean, I don't think I've watched a race in this game around Japan, at least not longer than 5 minutes, or 5 laps, sorry. So I'm excited to see how it goes, especially over the course of a 100% race.
Definitely. Just waiting for a few more drivers to get in here before we jump into the race. Of course, how many drivers are we waiting on right now? I see that we don't have the full amount just yet here in the session.
Yeah, we've got 20 signed up, but I was told that a few people might have dropped out, so we'll have to wait and see. But we've got people still rolling into the lobby, so I think we're just waiting on a couple more.
Well, buckle up, everybody, because it is going to be a long race. It's a 100% distance race, of course, with a 18-minute session of qualification. So these drivers will have 18 minutes to get their best lap in so that they can position themselves nicely on that grid. For when the race begins, of course, it's going to be a long one. And the damage is going to be set to reduced damage. And, of course, ghosting and things like that are going to be off, but it is going to be regular corner cutting as well for these races.
I don't know if there's a lobby problem. We seem to be gaining and losing people every minute, but they've still got 3 before we're scheduled to take off, as it were.
Of course, this race was supposed to happen last Saturday, but due to some technical issues, we had to postpone it to make way for the Tier 1 action that we had around Silverstone last week. And then, of course, now we are back to the Endurance Series, round 11. It's Suzuka in place of, well, we wanted to do a circuit that would have been, we would have liked to do Mugello, I'm sure, and we haven't been able to do some of the circuits on the calendar. This series, of course, following that calendar is, what we want to be doing. But in those races where we can't get the circuit in the game, of course, we substitute, and it's a driver-voted circuit. So the drivers said Suzuka, and we said no problem. Of course, thank you to everybody viewing with us and waiting patiently for this race to get underway in the chat. Greatly appreciate all of the support as always. My name is Stryfium, of course, and with me from the UK is Unicorn. And when was the last time that you had a chance to commentate an endurance race now?
It's a fair while ago because I was doing an ACC league, which was, 6 weeks long? And then obviously this has been
did you get a race in after that?
2 months.
Because I feel like we saw maybe Mikau Drive.
Yeah, I feel like we've done one.
Maybe one in between, but we've been like kind of up and down. We had the race, of course, that we weren't able to stream due to technical difficulties. Speaking of technical difficulties, unfortunately, yesterday we were not able to get a live stream together for the club division. But I can happily tell you that if you're interested in seeing how that race unfolded around Hungary, and I'm told that there was dynamic weather, it is on the YouTube channel in its full form, so you can go and see that. I believe it was you and Yoda that commentated that. Yoda making his commentary debut.
Yeah, it was quite nice to, hey Yoda, coming into something he's never done before. It was an interesting experience, and yeah, dynamic weather indeed. Rain hit us towards the end. Everyone had to pit on to intermediate tires. I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, it was interesting. Some people tried to leave it a lap early, late, and yeah, it proved a fairly interesting dynamic around Austria, and there are a lot of twists and turns in the strategies. I think we're just waiting on one more person here before we get underway.
You'd know best, yeah, so as soon as you're ready to get things going there, I am ready on my end for the ready up, so you just say the word. Suzuka, a circuit that I think a lot of these drivers really enjoy. I mean, it's iconic. Who doesn't know Suzuka? It's been home to so many legendary moments in Formula One, of course, and these racers now, they're going to have the opportunity to go through it on regular corner cutting stringency, reduce damage, as we provide that experience on the 100%ers. It's not like the league races that we do on a regular, which is, strict with the full damage incorporated, but this, we have that reduced damage, we have the regular corner cutting. Of course, this is open to anybody who's interested. So if you're in the Misfits Discord and you want to race in this event, it's a first come, first serve roster. If you've raced in races previous, of course, the fresh blood gets to go first. So you're going to see some drivers in here who may not have raced in a 100% event here so far. Of course, this is round 11. The stats are being tracked, but it isn't in a set league format, and it's just for fun. There's nothing on the line here. It's just a nice Saturday night drive for these guys.
Yeah, and I'm sure maybe about halfway through this, when they've been in it for 40-50 minutes, that might not be what they're describing it as. But yeah, it's an interesting prospect, chucking these guys in basically double the distance what most of them are used to. Most of the names that we're familiar with who are racing on a Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, used to 50%ers. And when you chuck them in, there we go. We have got the final person we were waiting for. So I do believe we are ready to go for the race. I'll just start, but I think that is everyone. Cool. Yeah, we are good to go. So we'll chuck the message out and get ready. But yeah, it's always nice to see people getting involved and giving it a go.
We're going to have what appears to be 17 drivers for this endeavor. And there's only one DRS zone here in Suzuka, and it could be a very exciting scorcher, thrilling race, or it could be a bit of drama. We'll have to see. It's a long race. Buckle up, get the popcorn, get your favorite snack, get your favorite beverage, nice soda, or, if you're of the age, something perhaps a little stronger, who knows. But of course, it's going to be the Japanese Grand Prix Round 11 for the Endurance Series. I have been waiting for this now for 2 weeks. We were very excited to do this last week, but here we go now. Finally jumping in to the Japanese Grand Prix. I love this circuit. I really do.
Yeah, I think the first sector is such a fast and flowing, so it's a really unique dynamic. I know there are S's elsewhere on the calendar. You've got the S's in Mexico, but the Suzuka S's are just something else there. And you hear it from the drivers. I think Sebastian Vettel commented this is one of the most fun tracks to drive around on the calendar. And I think that it's just so unique. There's such variety. You've got the S's, and then there's that tight hairpin at turn 11. You've got the long left-hander of Spoon and 130R. Chicane at the end. It's such an exciting, varied track. I think, you'd be hard-pressed not to love it as a motorsport fan.
Yeah, it's definitely... I mean, just look at it. You can see the track map there. It's so unique, and it's the only figure 8 circuit that we've got on the calendar, if I'm not mistaken. And when you look at that figure 8, I mean, it's not your stereotypical figure 8. It is straight up. You have that S's section in the first, the first sector, and then you move through into the Degners, through into the hairpin, and that's when you go under the underpass, of course. And then coming out of that hairpin, you go down that long curved section into the Spoon curve, up through into 130R, and then you come over the circuit. So you can hear, in some cases, when there's drivers that are lagging a little bit behind, you can hear the drivers flying underneath the underpass, and as a car may be traveling overhead. As the first driver out appears to be a Williams, that's going to be a Cotters.
Yeah, indeed, there he is. Joining the track, and it's overcast. I don't actually know what the forecast is. I know it is pretty set here, but there's a lot of cloud coverage.
Well, I can confirm it will be a dry endeavor. But, well, I shouldn't have said that now, because any drivers listening may have been given an edge there, but I can confirm that the weatherman has told me it is going to be a dry endeavor here. A little bit of cloud to begin the qualifying, nothing too major as Cotters comes through the second Degner, moving through in that underpass we were just speaking about into that hairpin.
Yeah, this hairpin, it's such an interesting thing. There's so many fast corners on this track, and then you've just got this super tight hairpin that just throws caution into the wind. It's coming out of those, turn 8 and 9, which are not quite 90-degree, right angle corners, but they're pretty close. And then come just into this hairpin. It's such a road circuit. I love it. I think it's so loved as well because there's so many motorsports that take advantage of this track as well. So even if you're, a MotoGP fan, GT fan, whatever, people know Suzuka. And I think Cotters is about to start his flying lap to take us through it.
It's just like Spa or Monza in the sense that it's iconic, it's legendary, it's been around a very, very long time. Cotters now using a little bit of that outside curb coming down through turn 1 now. Here we go, in through the S's, up through into 7th gear, keeping it in 7th, and I think that may have been a gear too high for him there because you can see Cotters now struggling. That's going to be Sindako on an outlap moving through. Cotters has to be careful. Who's that flying ahead? That's Adam. So I'll tell you what, we're going to jump on with the Red Bull now. Adam flying up through Dunlop, and this left-hander can be quite tricky for these drivers to find traction. Now he'll be coming down into the first Degner. This is a quick shift down to 7th, but he's really lost the car a little bit here, but you can get away with a bit more than you'd see in normal MRL races because, of course, like I said in the pre-show there, we have that regular corner cutting, so he will get to continue through on this lap, but of course I have to say, even with the regular corner cutting, keeping those strict lines in some cases, like in this circuit of Suzuka, is still the quickest way around, whereas, in a circuit like Russia or France, you have a little bit more ability to cut corners, find a little bit of extra time. Suzuka, in my personal opinion, not a circuit where you can find a lot of time doing that.
I think there's a lot of risk as well in going over those white lines, especially through Dunlop and coming into Degner. You've got a lot of gravel instead of curbing, or curbing that ends very abruptly in turns into gravel, and that can really quite easily just hook the car and spin it around. You can just lose traction so easily. As Atom posts a 131.2 to start the first one up. You said already that Dunlop, as low traction as Beavis on 128.4, absolutely smashes Atom's best time, but there's already low traction, and if you catch a little bit of gravel, it can just end your lap right there.
Cotters was the third time set in the session, a 154.1, so definitely improvement to be found there. Of course, Freeware beats out the Dutchman, his teammate for this occasion. It was Remco van Putten that crossed provisionally onto pole first there, but of course it was 126.5. Freeware beat it out by 0.2 here in the other car for AlphaTauri. You can see Freeware now pulled off the inside of the pit lane there just to give some drivers flying through an opportunity. Speaking of drivers on a flyer, let's look at the Ferrari. It's Alex Bitto coming through Dunlop.
A lot of drivers out on track right now. I think there's only one in the pit lane, and that's Mike Ronanda.
There's a Williams outside of Dunlop here. It's Cotters on the inside. He's done a 180, it would appear. He's just waiting for drivers to move on through. He's got that car turned around now. He's got a Racing Point coming through. That's XTXP, I do believe. Actually, he's lucky. I think that may have been Rez on an in-lap, so XTXP flying. But we're going to jump back on, of course, with Alex Bitto coming down into Spoon.
Yeah, Alex's teammate Wisp is just coming up to the chicane at the end of the lap as well, so I have to see what he's going to put in. It's been a fairly clean lap so far. It's not going to be provisional pole. It's a 127.8, which puts him fifth.
Jean there in third at the Alfa Romeo at 126.997, just jumping into those 126 times. Very nice lap from him. Alex Bitto is going to be looking to do the same now, coming out of the chicane. Into 7th gear here, moving up through the gears. That's a provisional pole for the Spaniard by a millisecond, Unicorn.
Well, I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was Alex, but it was someone. They got identical times back in, I want to say, Austria, but 1 millisecond taking provisional pole, it's going to rile Freeware up a little bit. And also, it's worth noting that Yoda has come into the pit. He hasn't set a lap, so I'm not quite sure what happened there. As Rackety crosses the line with a 127.3, just behind Rez. as his teammate beats him out by half a tenth. Liam going into 6th place.
Another driver we haven't seen set a lap here. Darian Alfie in the Renault. We saw a superlative drive from him on Tuesday. Or no, sorry, that was that Tuesday? No, I'm completely mixed up now. That was Thursday, Tier 2, of course. He had a great drive in F1 Adria, where he took a podium around Austria. Then he followed it up with another podium around, of course, Hungary, of all circuits. So, fantastic week for him so far. Who knows? Maybe we'll see him on the podium once again, coming through the chicane, the Renault driver. E4, a 126.951.
It's a good lap from him as well. So, like you said, a good week for him, and he's continuing his run of form, it would seem, coming into Suzuka here. And I think, he's a Tier 2 driver. There are Tier 1 drivers in this race, but I think the 100% nature of this race sort of levels the playing field a little bit, because you've got more time for the Tier 1 drivers to make mistakes. That if Darian can and the other drivers in this grid can avoid, that's when you can pick up places. There is plenty of opportunity to make mistakes on track and also strategic errors. Strategy is obviously completely different in one of these races to a traditional league race, so we'll have to see what everyone could do. Microlander, he's not set a time, but he has now, and he knocks Darian down a place, a 126.5, just off of Remco Van Puten's time. 200ths of a second separate them.
One driver I wanted to bring our attention to here, Unicorn, is Yoda. He is currently leading the Tier 1 championship. The Tier 1 grid is the fastest we have on offer here in the Misfits Racing League presently. Of course, we have, well, that could be kind of contested now with the introduction of the Oceanic Division, but drivers are getting faster week to week here. Yoda in the McLaren has had some good drives here in the Endurance Series just the same. Of course, he's had a few wins in Tier 1. He's the only driver on this grid yet to set a time, and I know I spoke to him before this race. He's looking for a win, so we're going to see what this first lap from the Albanian is going to be here as he makes his way through the penultimate turns in that chicane.
Yeah, and I think the 100% races kind of suit Yoda's style. He was telling me, I want to say last night, that he prefers, he thinks that his strategy is what sometimes gives him an edge. He was telling me that he doesn't always think he's necessarily faster than everyone else on track, but he thinks that having a good strategy is how you pull through. And in a 100% race strategy, well, you gain more or less time.
Oh yeah, for sure. It comes into play much larger in these 100% races. We've seen it all season.
So I really think like his interest in that sort of strategic knowledge that he's got from focusing on that is going to pay dividends, and we've seen it before, like you said, and I'm sure we'll see it again here this evening as Beavis completely cuts the penultimate turn and comes into the pit lane.
I think Liam's called it quits in the pit lane as well here. The Mercedes in P8, that 127.3, comfortable enough for him. Yoda running a little bit wide out of spoon. In MRL, that may have been a clear invalidation, but of course, the regular corner cutting, giving these drivers a little bit of breathing space for the 100% endeavor. Coming down into the chicane, a little bit of traffic up ahead. That's Remco Van Putten about to begin a flyer, so he'll be getting out of the way quite quickly here. To the line now, Yoda. That's a P2 from him. Very, very quick.
Would have been P1. But Freeware's just posted a 125.8, and I'm not sure, like you said, Remco was at the end of Yoda's lap. I'm not sure if he gave Freeware a little slipstream down the back straight. I didn't see it, so I don't want to say that there was, but he was parked at the chicane. I don't know whether he's just letting his teammate by on a fly like he would anyone else, or whether there was a little tip of Remco spinning through Dunlop. And there's that lack of traction we were talking about.
Well, he recovered it like an absolute champ, I have to say. He's going again already, and with a spin like that, I wouldn't have seen many other drivers get going nearly as quick. Now, Adam in the Red Bull, he looks to be on an in-lap. He's not using any energy, and Alex Biddo's called it in the pit lane. No, it's not the pit lane.
No, if he has, he's in the S's. His teammate Wisp hopefully will get a look on that car. Where has Alex come off?
It looks like it's exactly where he came off, where we've seen it. In the outro to our stream, of course, the We Are MRL video, where Mikau said it best. Alex is off.
Well, Fraser, in the chat, and many of you might know from the club division and elsewhere in the Misfits, but he said literally 10 minutes ago, Alex, don't make Striff repeat Mikau's magic words. And, well, you've done just that. So I think Fraser there might have hit him with a commentator's curse via you.
Well, one thing I think I heard from Alex can correct me if I'm wrong later, but I heard, and there's a McLaren who's appeared to have spun. I believe that's Cactus coming out of the second Degner there, just ahead of the underpass. But I'll say this. I was speaking with Alex, and I think he had said, I'm nervous for Suzuka, because the last time we saw Alex in Suzuka was the finale of Tier 1 racing last season. And he had come together with none other than the McLaren we were just talking about, leading the Tier 1 championship, Yoda. So, of course, if you're looking to see what happened in that, you can head on over to the YouTube. Just look for the We Are MRL video, and you'll see that in its entirety. Yoda and him coming through the S's section. It was Alex with a little bit of damage, I believe. And it was very, very interesting. Liam retiring in the pit lane. Alex Bitto not so fortunate to do so. He crashed. So everybody has set a time here on this grid so far. Everybody has set a time on the soft compound tires as well. Things from the first down to, of course, pretty well 8th position. Fairly tight thus far. Within a second, we have Rez on an outlap. We'll be looking to push that. Darian Alfie in the Renault has just begun as well, Unicorn.
Yeah, I'm just on board with a couple of drivers. Jean, I believe, was just flying. He had invalidated. Wisp as well was about half a second down coming out of Sector 1. Now, having a look at Rackety, who is having another crack at a flying lap right now. Currently in 11th place, so we'll have to see if he can improve on the 127.3 that he's currently on. But like you said, Darian Alfie, he's in 7th now after a few other drivers have knocked his previous best time down a few pegs. But it's very exciting qualifying laps, shaping up to be a race we've seen. These 100% races have been very exciting in the past, and I think this one is going to be fairly similar in that regard. There's Rackety coming around the final few corners. Just keeping it as tight as possible to this pit wall. He's going to come across the line of 126.6. A 7/10 improvement puts him from 11th to 7th, knocking his teammate into the free tyre choice positions. So crazy that the Albania flag isn't in the game, but there we are. There's 3 North Koreans on the grid. I think Codders as well has joined them in protest in the Williams. But yeah, there we are. We've got 3 self-proclaimed North Koreans on this grid. And like you said, Cactus now coming through Spoon. A little bit of a slide coming out of Spoon, but nothing he can't handle in the McLaren. Wisp has just rejoined the session. Don't know what was going on there with some sort of connection issue potentially for the Ferrari driver. Cactus taking a lot of the inside curving at turn 15, but obviously we are on that reduced corner cutting stringency. It's a 128.4, which is an improvement for Cactus, but he is in 16th place still. Yeah, Freeway, our current pole sitter, is 4/10 up on Yoda right now, and he's now 2.5 tenths up on his previous best. We'll have to see if he can manage to finish this lap out through the final chicane. Around the final corner, what is it going to be? It's a 125.6 coming out of the AlphaTauri. Many of the top 5 are on flyers, though, so he's not absent for competition. Syndico, though, he has aborted his lap.
Wisp in the Ferrari has just begun a lap, and I wanted to say, of course, if anybody's looking to jump in to a fantastic Discord community, I highly recommend joining the Misfits. I am an admin here. We do our very best to eliminate toxicity, and we try to provide a nice family-oriented, friendly environment for everybody to try and get quicker. A lot of these guys, you know, we started this a year ago with Zamis, of course, 20 drivers, and no, not even 20 drivers. It was kind of just a bunch of friends coming together, and we all came together and said, why don't we put together a league? And things have just grown, and it's been fantastic to see. So big shout out to everybody in the chat viewing us in the race, of course. Thank you so much. It's been a very, very humble experience getting to where we've gotten, and we just hope to keep trucking forward. Wisp coming down now into Spoon Curve. He's looking to improve, and so far he is doing so.
Okay, so Remco he bumped into second, but he's been bumped out by Mike Rolando and Yoda. He seems to have found a great time-saving opportunity. There is a lot of opportunity to cut turn 16 and take a lot of the inside curb through there. So that's something that I don't know how many of the drivers are aware of, but Remco certainly is, and it didn't invalidate his lap, and he got 3.5 tenths over the whole lap improvement. Yoda as well, Mike Rolando, they're up into P3 and 2 respectively.
I think that is it.
Yeah, I don't know who we're waiting for to catch. There we are, Rackety. Retiring from the session, ending qualifying out.
18 minutes of qualifying now has concluded here, and it is going to be Freeware on pole position. Unicorn absolutely rapid from him, a 125.649, very quick microlander in the Red Bull. Of course, P2, a 125.910 from him, and you have Yoda there in the McLaren, the Albanian, a 125.931, of course, not from North Korea. We have Remco van Putten in the other AlphaTauri. He's fourth, and that is the Ferrari of Alex Bitto, the Spaniard, rounding out your top 5. We will go through the rest of this grid for you, of course, on the formation lap.
Yeah, Freeware's time there, absolutely astonishing. And Mike Rolando and Yoda, their times are so close. 200ths of a second between the pair of them. But yeah, the grid pretty close together. We'll have to see whether Freeware's qualifying pace can translate. He was putting in fast laps all session long, so he seems to have just nailed the circuit.
Certainly hope he's able to carry that consistency that he had in qualifying, nailing those fast lap times here in the race. Again, we have some clouds. I think we're going to see a little bit of lighting change here. Of course, if you're just tuning in, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Stryfium. Joining me from the UK is, of course, Unicorn, and we are here for round 11 of Misfits Racing League Endurance Series action. It is the Japanese Grand Prix, 100% distance, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Safety car is enabled, so we will potentially see some safety cars. I will say corner cutting is on regular because it's a long ride here. We want to have these guys, you know, enjoy themselves, have a little bit of fun, and it's going to be reduced damage so that, you know, there isn't potential to have a car eliminated immediately, but it hasn't, you know, we've seen it before, haven't we, Unicorn? Formation lap.
It's certainly possible. It's certainly possible to retire a car. I mean, Alex Bitto is evidence of that. He's done it in the qualifying. He's gonna hope. Despite that, he's still qualified 5th on the grid. So he's gonna hope that he can put in a little bit of a more consistent performance here in the race. He's got 53 laps to showcase that. It's a fairly long lap around Suzuka.
Well, Alex Bitto knows we're going to be keeping an eye on him throughout this race because of his history here. Yoda just the same, if we see those two locked tight, we're going to have to stay with them because those two had a big issue here last time around Suzuka. And of course, there's only one driver separating them, Remco van Putten, and we know how he drives. He is a very, very good defender here. And Alex Bido and him, Unicorn, you and me have commentated these guys wheel to wheel I don't know how many times.
Yeah, and it's always a joy to watch because, like you said, Remco is just so good at defending. But Alex Bido as well, he's this really quick, really sort of not aggressive driver, but he gets the moves done. But he's also excellent. We saw it, I want to say this week with that, a lot of aging tires around the Hungaroring, just an example, and he just knows how to park that car in specific spots. I think we saw him do it around Silverstone as well, potentially. But he's a very well-rounded driver. But yeah, Remco, an excellent defensive driver. Yoda, a very, he's told me before, he's strategic. So these guys, we know how good they all are and how exciting it is when they all get together. And now the three of them, third, fourth, and fifth on this grid, it'll be very exciting to watch. Freeware as well. He's at the front right now. I'm sure he's gonna.
Sindako as well. He had a good reserve drive on Thursday in Tier 1. And one other thing to talk about here is tires. We have 3 drivers on the medium compound here. It's going to be Rez, Beavis, and XTXP. XTXP in that Racing Point, the last of the 3 on those mediums. Now, he had a good drive, I believe it was in Hungary on Tuesday. If I'm not mistaken, he split his position starting from 10th. He made it to 5th, and he had a good patient drive, and who knows, maybe we'll see it again from him. He's starting on those harder compound tires. We'll be able to pit a little bit later, but of course, now to the line here, Unicorn, take us through this race start.
Here we go then. We're going to wait for those revs to kick in from the drivers. There we go. They are now seeing the lighting sequence, despite the fact that we may not be. But here we go then. We are away for 100% race around Suzuka, and it looks like Racketti's had an excellent start. The AlphaTauri and the Renault, that's Remco and Sindako. They seem to have an excellent start as well. We've got Remco already up the inside of Alex Bido, and there is Sindako ready to pick up the pieces. He's up into P5. Alex Bido already losing a position, but he definitely doesn't want to come off at the beginning of this race through the S's. Beavis, he's up 4 places in 9th. There's a yellow flag, but everyone seems to still be moving here. And a fairly clean start from all of these drivers. A few people changing positions, but the top 4 holding station.
Things very intense as we come through the underpass now. Wisp on the rear of his teammate Alex Bido. Let's take a look at the quick position changes here. It's Liam right now on the inside of Darian Alfie into the hairpin. That's the Mercedes on the inside, and he gets the move done. And the Canadian that started at the rear of this grid 2 positions back from where he is now is on a charge.
Yeah, he is not hanging around at all. Beavis a little bit wide through Spoon, chasing Racketti and Wisp. And Liam, he's not too far behind him, so if Liam is ready and waiting to make some more moves, he could be gaining some positions here rather nicely. You've got the 2 Ferraris as well. Alex Bido dropped down into 6th place. His teammate Wisp now pretty quick through 130R and is gaining, it would seem, on his teammate. But up the inside, that is Racketti, the other Mercedes, both of these Mercedes trying to make moves. And despite Wisp on the inside through turn 16, it is Racketti getting the exit out of the final corner. He is going to be charging. They're side by side, but it is going to be Racketti first into turn 1.
Yeah, Beavis here in the Williams. That's Wisp. He's gone wide, and this is going to be the Williams now, wheel to wheel with the Ferrari, coming through the first section of the S's, and that is going to be Beavis through, but it's Wisp with the switchback as Beavis has an issue. And things are really getting heated as Liam has made his way into 9th position. He's up 3 slots now. And he is absolutely flying, the Canadian in the Mercedes.
Yeah, and at the front, Freeway hasn't run away. He has still got Microlander within 4/10 of him, so he's still got pressure being applied, but no position changes up at the front.
Liam on the inside into the hairpin. He's dispatched the Ferrari of Wisp now. And Liam isn't taking any prisoners, as you'd say, Unicorn.
Yeah, he is absolutely cutting his way through this field. He does not want to hang around at the start of this race. His teammate now ahead of him. He's held on to 7th place, but I think Liam might have some words to say about that if he can get within the 1/10 range. Obviously, only one DRS zone around this track, and it's about to get enabled. So Liam's got 1 lap to get closed down a half a second gap to his teammate.
DRS is about to be enabled here. Microlander, Yoda, Remco in that procession have all clapped fastest laps here, but it's going to be Van Putten with the gauntlet being thrown down. It's a 132 flat from him. And of course, everybody going to be looking to push here. Everyone's on the soft compound tires except 3. Rez at the back of this grid right now. He's had an issue and he's had to jump onto another set of medium compound tires here. And you can see things are starting to space themselves out as Wisp right now within a second of Liam. Liam is 2 seconds off of his teammate ahead. There's a little bit of a train right now behind the leader. Of course, Microlander hasn't been giving Freeware any opportunity to breathe here. Freeware in the AlphaTauri, the sister car, the Red Bull in P2. Beavis and Darian Alfie having an exchange, and it looks like Darian into the gravel trap there coming out of that first Degner. Things have bunched up. Jean and XTXP are hungry for positions. XTXP now and John wheel-to-wheel coming through that hairpin, and there goes Jean. He's spun around with a little bit of a drift, a nice recovery there. He's going to have a little bit of hot tires here, and XTXP is going to get through. Wow.
Oh, and behind them, Cactus has spun out of the hairpin.
Oh, no.
He's damaged his front wing into the inside wall. But yeah, I want to say, who was it? Darian Alfie who ran wide through the Degner. Rejoined the track fairly slowly. I don't know whether that was his fault because of the gravel on his tyres, but definitely some sort of problem, and that's cost Jean here. He was sort of collected in that incident.
DRS now for Microlander. As we've had it enabled, of course, there's only one DRS section here, and it is on the straight down into turn 1. He gets a little bit of momentum here, but someone else who has momentum, Wisp, under major threat. It's the Canadian on the Swede coming down into turn 1, and Wisp just holds station on that line, but he goes deep. Liam looking for traction coming down the inside, not able to get it for a move just yet, but that Mercedes has a very, very clear target ahead, and he wants to make up some more positions here, as he's already made up 4.
Well, yeah, it's actually, yeah, it's a regaining. You were right, he has made up 4 places, but he had a real wobble coming out of the final corner, and Wisp was like, thank you very much. DRS enabled and just breezed past, and then Liam enabled DRS, snuck into Wisp's slipstream and just followed him into turn 1. But yeah, Liam's lucky that he only lost 1 position to what was a fairly huge error, or at least some sort of kick out from the rear. But
Remco
it honestly looked like he's going to speed.
And Yoda, very tight, intense battling here. Yoda defends off the Dutchman, coming through the first turn of Spoon here. Well, the entry of Spoon, I should say. Excuse me. Of course, Remco holding back now. Things are very heated in this front battle as Microlander still breathing down Freeware's neck. Yoda not too far behind.
Liam on the inside of Wisp going through 130R. It's going to be the Mercedes retaking P8, but Wisp has got the inside line. He's not going to go late on the brakes into the chicane, though. He's going to take the DRS on the Mercedes down into turn 1.
Speaking of DRS, Microlander looking at, of course, Freeware not going to get it done here. Wisp now. You see Liam break to the inside. He tries to squeeze off the Ferrari, but he's already wheel-to-wheel. But you see Wisp just the same way we saw it last lap. He goes a little bit wide and deep through turn 1, but Liam has a bit of a shake of traction coming out of the rear of that Mercedes. And now Wisp very tight to the rear coming through the SS section. And if these drivers continue to battle, Beavis is going to be looking to inherit. And, of course, Beavis on those medium compound tires, Unicorn.
Yeah, Liam looks like he's running a very twitchy setup. One mistake, and that car is going to spin like crazy, but I think it's been working as an advantage. I think that might be maybe running a little bit less downforce than the other drivers on this grid might have gained in these positions he saw at the start of this race.
Yoda.
But it's Remco Van Putten around the outside of Yoda, but he's in the gravel, and that's a spin from the AlphaTauri driver. He's in a big old gravel trap, though. There's no wall there.
Remco Van Putten would appear to be the recovery specialist here. We saw it in qualifying. We've seen it again now coming through Spoon. He's letting some fast movers through here trying to recover. Him and Yoda, I'm sure, going to have an exchange of words post-race, but let's take a look at the front of this grid. Freeware under major threat now. Microlander is quite close, and he will have DRS down the pit straight here, Unicorn, as we come through the chicane.
Yeah, Remco as well. He's got a lot of gravel in his tires, struggling to get it back under control. No, Michael, like you said, he's had DRS on freeway pretty much every lap since it's been enabled. Still not able to make that move down into turn 1. Is Wisp going to have any more luck?
With the wheel, he's on the outside. This time he's holding it even harder through down into turn 1. But coming through the S's here, he doesn't have many options when he's on that line. Liam moving just ahead through, and like I said, this fighting is just keeping Beavis in the rears, and Darian Alfie's catching up to Beavis just the same, and he'll be wanting to inherit some position.
Yeah, and it's a long race as well. Everyone opting for these softs. The way that these races are, they're fairly unique. We don't always see 100% races, so tires scaled to more realistic levels of wear. So these softs run a lot longer than they will in a 50% race, but you're still going to be mindful of the tire wear that battling constantly lap after lap like this is going to cost you. Obviously, the stakes are a little bit lower in a 100% race, but bragging rights still very much on the line here.
It's a somewhat immersive experience for these guys. They've really enjoyed these 100% distance races. Of course, we had a few late-minute dropouts. That's why we don't have the full grid, but we've seen a lot of really good interest for this series so far. We've had 11 rounds, and I think this might be the first round that we've had, Unicorn, that's had less than 19 drivers, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, I can get fact check on that as Microlander gets it done finally, or has he? Freeware with a really good stick to the inside here. He might have the optimal line here, and he does. He gets it back out in front of that Red Bull, and they are racing that Red Bull quite hard coming through these S's, the AlphaTauri squad. We've seen that recently. Wisp hasn't had an issue. Yeah, he's spun coming through that first section out of turn 1. He's not going to be too thrilled at all.
On board with him. Microlander, like you said, he had that around the outside, and Freeway just had a lot of traction up the inside, but he had a really excellent deployment of ERS out of the corner, deploying ERS out of the corner as Remco. He's in the garage up as well, similar to where Alex Biddo came off in qualifying.
He won't be too thrilled about that at all, and of course, if we do have a safety car in this race, I imagine he'll be quite happy about it, as will Rez, and I'm sure Cactus just the same. Let's take a look back on over at this battle for the front right now. These drivers are still locked within a train somewhat. Everybody within a second of one another as we move down through into P5. Alex Biddo, the Spaniard, still within a second of Sindaco, the Italian, and we move through. We have an Albanian as well as Microlander. I do believe he's from the UK, if somebody can confirm that for me. And we have Freeware, the German. Quite the diversity here on this grid. It's what you love to see, Unicorn.
Microlander is indeed a British driver. So you are correct in saying that. And is he going to have another look at Freeway? I think he's a little bit too far back this lap, but the pace into turn 1's certainly there, and he's not making the move, but sometimes the pressure can be enough to just keep someone aware that you're there. And as soon as they make a slip up, they know that you're going to pounce. And if someone's aware, I can't make a slip up, otherwise, in this case, Microlander's going to pass me, that can make them then make the slip up that they were so aware that they shouldn't make. So Microlander just keeping that pressure at 100% the whole way around over the course of the last 7 or 8 laps. As Winko Van Putten gets a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. He's followed Wispin.
He's not going to be too thrilled about that. Of course, Darian Alfie on the rear of Beavis right now. Beavis on those medium compound tires doing quite well in 8th position. Let's take a look at the position changes. Beavis and Liam, as well as Cotters, have all made up 5 positions each here.
Yeah, some really good starts to this race from a few of these guys. And Remco, one of the only people who's had a major, and Wisp as well. Everyone else has had a pretty decent race start, so to speak. Everyone's been battling cleanly, and I think most of the mistakes here, I haven't seen anyone have any too big of a squeeze of the track to the racing right now. Really clean, really fair, and that's what we love to see, as Microlander still TRS range of Freeware. Again, he looks a little bit too far back.
Oh, Darian Alfie with a late lunge into the chicane there. There was a door open from the Williams of Beavis. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Unicorn, but that may have been real touch and go for the Renault there. I am surprised that he is still maintaining a clean front wing right now, because I thought for sure that he may have gone into the middle of that. Williams, as he goes down the inside now, the Williams, Beavis on the medium compound tires is defending Darian quite hard through this center section of the S's, and there goes Darian with a slide. He has brought that car around with a reset to track for good measure, and XTXP moves through into 10th. And I imagine Darian not going to be too thrilled about that. Of course, he is on some soft compound tires. Beavis was on the mediums, and that was a very unique battle that we saw unfolding there. It's still Microlander within half a second of Freeware as we move down into Spoon.
Yeah, XTXP did well to avoid that Renault. I think the reset to track might have actually saved him to some respect, made it more predictable where that car was going to go. But there is now a little gap, a little balance, forming at the rear of this grid. Wisp obviously coming out of the pit lane, ahead of Rez and Codders as well, who's just come out of the pits as well. So a little three-way battle might start to form there, but this train at the front is still very much alive from first down through fifth. They've all got DRS on each other. Syndico just in it. But yeah, these guys all still battling it out. Microlander still yet to pass Freeway. He's been trying. Yoda just behind him. He's a smart racer. He is just going to wait until these guys battle, and then that will open a window of opportunity. But Syndico, he seems to start to be dropping back a little bit from the top three, but Alex Biddo will be there to pick up the pieces when he does. But let's not forget that Alex Biddo started this race in fifth. Syndico, on the other hand, he's up 2 places. So if Remco hadn't have had that issue, Alex Biddo would have been down a place. From where he started this race, Yoda, though, just watching the rear of these 2 drivers, and he's had an excellent front row seat of this battle going on for the past few laps. And I don't think his show that he is watching here is going to end anytime soon as they come out of Spoon. Microlander is still within half a second of Freeway. He's fairly close. His entrance and exit through the chicane here is really critical as to whether he can get a run down into turn 1 with DRS. He's gaining on Freeway a little bit into the chicane.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough here. The tires, the softs. I mean, these 100%ers are always unique for you and I because we know what tire life is like in those 50% races, but it gets kind of thrown into question for these 100%ers now. He sets the fastest lap as well here, coming down through into turn 1, and he's quite close to the rear, but we know how fighting through the S's section can go. We saw it last lap round, of course, with Darian, Alfie, and Beavis.
Yeah, and speaking of Beavis, he's got Jean behind him, and if there's ever a case study we needed to test when tires start to
Darian
fall off.
On the inside, that's XTXP in the racing point, and Darian has made the move ahead into 10th position, and I imagine he is driving with a major sharpening stone there, looking for Mr. Beavis, trying to take that position back. John looking to do him a favor here and push him back into his grasp, I imagine. 4.1 seconds, the gap to P9 for Darian, and it's John absolutely hunting down Beavis. Things are still quite tight at the front of this grid, just the same. Microlander half a second from Freeware.
Yeah, Beavis the only person in the top 10 on those mediums right now. XTXP was in the top 10 before Darian passed him there through turn 1. As we've got a yellow flag in sector 1, I think that's Atom in the Red Bull. He's pointing the wrong way. I think he's just waiting for Wisp and Rez to come past before he can spin that Red Bull around. Again, that Dunlop curve proving somewhat troublesome. I think he's got to wait damage-free.
John quite tight to the rear of Beavis, coming through 130R now. You can see that Safina rear wing on that Williams. He's going to look to the inside, coming down into the chicane, and Beavis gets on the brakes early, perhaps looking for a switchback, but John says, no way, Jose, and he jumps into 8th position, but that is going to provide Beavis with the DRS on the rear of that Alfa Romeo coming down into turn 1. Microlander still hunting down Freeware, nothing doing. Yoda has caught things up within half a second for the moment as they make their way through, of course, this first section through Dunlop. I don't know, where are they right now? I am completely confused as to where they are.
Yeah, they have just come through the Degner and turn 9.
Okay, yeah, I was right. I was correct then. Track map can be deceiving sometimes here around Suzuka.
Yeah, it's so closely woven. You can see there's a group of trees on the left there between what is turn 12 and the long straight behind it, but on the track map they're super close together. And Yoda has a very good run on Microlander here, and Microlander, he's been putting pressure on Freewer, but now he is the one under a lot of pressure. Yoda is very close to the rear of this Red Bull, and this time into turn 1 I would be surprised if we didn't see a position change, but who is it going to be between? Yoda having to slow right up as Microlander gets very close to the rear of Freewer, and that's spaced them out a little bit, but behind them Alex Biddo as well. He is very close, and he is no longer very close to Sindaku as the Ferrari absolutely breezes past it. Atom, as a back marker's nearly spun it through turn 1 as the 3 leaders pass him.
Very, very fortunate for Adam to be off there, out of the way of these drivers, because that could have definitely shaken things up here. Beavis is flying on the rear of Jean, trying to keep up. He is on those mediums. He can go longer, but the softs with a little bit more pace in them at the moment. Darian, however, on those softs, still 4.1 seconds off of P9 here, and that's where we saw him for the past lap, at the very least 2 laps, I believe it has been now. But things are still tight in this midfield battle.
Yeah, and that's the thing I love about these 100% races. You'd think that over 100%, that's a lot of time for these drivers to space themselves out, and the races would have the risk of getting boring, but that is the direct opposite of what happens. You can see Microlander, he's been pressuring Freeware, and now Yoda's pressuring him. These guys do not let each other go. They are here to just race and race hard for what is just over an hour of these races, probably an hour and 20 minutes at least.
Well, it's very interesting to see here. The energy deployment on all of these racers is somewhat... Ooh, and there's an issue. That's Cotters. He is retired, and there's a VSC deployed here. We'll see if anybody blinks to jump into the pit lane. You can see Freeware, Microlander, and Yoda have all had to slow things up. But there has been a VSC deployed. We have had our first retirement on lap 14. That is the Williams of Cotters out of this race.
Liam is going to jump into that pit lane. Is anyone else? I think Darian Alfie will be early. He is. Darian Alfie's coming in as well. And I think his tyres might have, heated up. Maybe got a little bit of extra wear from that incident earlier on in this race. So this is a fairly good opportunity for him to take a little bit of a pit stop. He's going to have some clear air as well, apart from the Mercedes ahead of him. There goes the VSC. We're back to green flag racing. And that's actually spaced out the front runners a little bit. They're all just out of, according to the timing tower at least, they're all about a second apart from each other now rather than half a second. So,
Microlander are going to be upset about this. Yoda, however, won't be, considering Microlander is without DRS on Freeware coming through out of the final turn of this circuit, which means Yoda is going to have an unimpeded run at this Red Bull, because of course it's been the DRS keeping that Red Bull ahead as well on the rear of Freeware. It's been a very good battle, but now you can see Yoda gaining. We come up the straight into 130R here. Yoda is purple through this section, as of course there was a VSC. That isn't going to be relative to a fastest lap of any kind, but of course coming through this chicane, you can see now on that telemetry the DRS is coming through for the Albanian. Microlander now not going to have it on the rear of Freeware, and you can see the timing tower tick down. It's not enough just yet for Yoda, but he is going to be putting that Red Bull under threat, and that's going to cost Microlander some time to Freeware ahead, Unicorn.
Yeah, Sindaku closed up a little bit to Alex Biddo as well with that DRS, so he has not finished with the Spaniard. He wants that P4 back. He's overtaken him at the start of this race. He looks like he's more than willing to do it all over again as Beavis is getting very close to Jean, and it's going to be very interesting. These two are going to be the indicator of when these soft tires start to really depreciate, because the front six, they're just battling people on other soft tires. Jean, on the other hand, he's fighting with someone who is on a harder compounded tire, and Beavis is going to be able to go much longer than the Alfa Romeo ahead of him on this first stint. Liam as well. He's getting nice and tight to the rear of XTXP. Liam on the fresh hard compound tires.
Yeah, XTXP, I was just about to say, has a problem named Liam here coming through Dunlop, and these hards, they're going to be starting to come up to temperature now for him. As we come through the first Degner, we'll have to see what he can do. A little bit of a cut there, but these drivers have a little bit more liberty with the circuit in the Endurance Series than they do in the regular MRL racing divisions. And of course, XTXP going to be looking to defend as best he can. He is on those mediums, and at this stage of this race, they still have a good chunk of pace in them. So it could be that those keeping him in front of that Mercedes for now. I was about to say Red Bull because we're used to seeing Liam in a Red Bull, but now on the inside coming through Spoon. Oh, and there's a bit of contact. XTXP getting things back on track. A good recovery from him, but he is going to drop back a significant amount of time, nearly 2 seconds for the racing point. As Beavis and Jean, I believe that's an exchange between the two drivers. If I'm not mistaken, Jean into P7, but I could be wrong on that. Alex Bido has dropped as he's come out in to 8th position on some fresh medium rubber, and now both Jean and Beavis, regardless of whether or not they swapped, are going to have a very large problem named Alex Bido.
Yeah, Beavis was behind Jean this time last lap, but yeah, Alex Bido is, like you said, Beavis' biggest problem here. He's looking at him at the inside of Dunlop. He might try and go around the outside. I wouldn't advise it. He's going to try and switch back into the hairpin, I imagine, is his next attacking target. You can see, look at the pace and the traction these fresh mediums are going. Oh! But he's taking too much curb on the inside. And that's a big spin, and that's a huge chunk of damage.
He is not going to be thrilled about that at all. He was pushing quite hard there. And it looks like, as you said, that curb flung him into that wall on the outside, and he's going to be really upset about this. And that looks like Yoda. I don't know if that was an issue with Yoda or what has gone on there, but Yoda is on the rear of Microlander by some level now, and it was his teammate Cactus, I think, has been lapped. I believe Adam has been as well. We'll take a look at the position changes and the gap to leader right now.
Yeah, Alex Bido's Suzuka curse seems to be continuing here. He's lost 12 seconds as a result of that incident, and you know, if we were on it, as it seems Cactus might have come off through the S's as well, now into a wall, just off into the grass and the gravel. But yeah, Alex Bido not going to be too happy. He's into the pits to replace that front wing, I would imagine. Yep, onto some fresh mediums again for the Ferrari driver. New front wing on that number 72 Ferrari. And he is going to come up behind his teammate, Wisp, who has already pitted in this race.
Looks like there's been a bit of a reversal of roles here. Microlander's caught up with freeware for that DRS. Yoda instead has dropped out of it, which is a different scenario than what we saw when that VSC came back offline. And things have spaced themselves out on this grid. There's a significant amount of tire differential now in this grid as well for the amount of life in the tires, the difference in strategies here. I imagine a lot of racers on this grid really looking for a safety car. I imagine the top 6 wouldn't mind, considering they're all on the softs as well. But as it is on reduced damage, I will say the likeliness of a safety car is a little bit lower than what we're used to, considering the 50% races when we run that full damage. But Microlander, as we've seen all race long, he has been sticking with freeware so well here. Sindako has blinked and gotten onto some medium compound tires here. The yellow tires on that yellow Renault now. Jean has chosen to jump into the pit lane, and it looks like Beavis is going to come out and stay in 6th here. Jean in 7th, and he's going to have a good chunk of time to gain here on Sindako ahead. So we'll see what this is able to do for Beavis, but of course Sindako on those fresh mediums is going to pull away.
Yeah, well, we saw the pace that Alex Bido had against Beavis on those fresh mediums as well. So now it'll be interesting to see what sort of damage Sindako could do. He's got 10 seconds to Rackety ahead of him now. Rackety in 4th right now. He's 13 seconds off of the front 3, but still very impressive that he's managed to climb up into that position. But it would seem that the strategy here is a one-stop, softs to mediums, and a few drivers on the hards, they might struggle towards the end of this race if these mediums can go the distance, as Jean and XTXP Here, exchanging through Dunlop, Jean on those fresh mediums, showing that traction off. And he's going to breeze past the racing point there. There's Freeware and Yoda. They've both come into the pits. Microlander staying out for another lap. So he's going to try and stay out. Go for an overcut potentially on those two leaders. We'll have to see what he can do. Where will Sindaco come out in all of this as well? Rackety now up into P2.
Of course, real quick, just talking about the rules here for the Endurance Series and by extension a little bit for the Misfits Racing League. All of these drivers are allowed to use whatever assists they do so desire. And we do that for a very specific reason. Racing is about speed. And if you're fast, you're fast. And of course, we like to see all the fighting in the world. So if you're fast with assists, then you're fast with assists. But of course, I think we can safely say, Unicorn, the Tier 1 grid, I don't think there's many of them using assists in there. And in order to be competitive, as many people have said it, it's important not to use those assists. They can definitely cripple you, as Sindaco and Yoda are going to be looking for a little bit of a tangle. You can see Sindaco now quite close to the rear of that McLaren. Microlander and Rackety opting to stay out there in a unique position here. We'll have to see how it benefits them when they do decide to pit. Or maybe it won't benefit them.
This lap. As
well, we're about to find
Remco?
out.
Of course, the yellow flag. I think it seems like there he is, into the pits. Rackety as well. He isn't going to be as competitive in terms of the position he comes out in, but his tyres aren't doing too badly. But here we go. Microlander into the pits. Fresh mediums for the Red Bull driver. It looks like he might be serving a penalty as well. Or no, just some sort of lag for the Red Bull driver. Rackety into the pit lane. And Microlander here might have got away.
Oh, it's going to be very close.
He's not going to have the acceleration to get past
What about
Freeware.
Yoda is going to be right behind him with some very hot tires coming through this S's section. So I imagine he's going to have a little bit more grip coming through here, which is extremely important through this first sector. You can see Freeware pulling away from Microlander a little bit. Microlander falling into Yoda's grasp, but he has to worry about Sindaco just the same. Jean collects the fastest lap now, 130.291 for the time being. Of course, all of these racers still have a good portion of fuel left in those cars. Microlander coming through that second Degner now, a little bit of a tap into the gravel there, but things are still quite packed on this grid. The intervals have spaced themselves out somewhat, but now there's an issue. That's a Red Bull off. I do believe that's Adam who's done a 180 just outside of the underpass coming down into the hairpin, and he's got, of course, I think that's Rackety coming up on his rear.
And he's spun it again. He got definite damage. He's missing a end plate on the right hand side of his front wing. But yeah, not going his way this week. Remco Van Putten ahead of him in 14th place has just come into the pits to give you an idea of where the next nearest car ahead of him is.
Alien7Z in the chat giving us a bit of a heads up here. Adam apparently driving without a setup, which we know around Suzuka can be quite tricky, so I can't necessarily blame him.
Yeah, setups are pretty key around here. I can't remember who it was who was in the call. It might have been Atom or it might have been Codders. Codders out of this race, obviously. Someone was going to go and get a late minute setup because of how important it is. About 10 minutes before, they were like, oh dear, I do not have a setup. And they went off to get one, whether it's worked out for it. But Wisp and Bitto exchanging positions through 130R. Alex with the fresh mediums going past his teammate.
Sindaco still sticking with Yoda. Yoda just dancing in and out of that DRS detection range, of course, with Microlander. Microlander sticking well with Freeware, and those drivers in the top three haven't had a lot of opportunity to breathe, and things are getting even more pressurized as Sindaco joined the party.
Yeah, and this top four really is... It's crazy when you get these races where usually you're looking for the midfield for the fighters. You know, you look at the real F1 and you've got the Mercedes dominant up at the front, completely missing. But here we are with the top four, pretty much the closest drivers anywhere on this grid. And that's when it's the most exciting for the most points. Obviously, the Endurance Series, a little bit more relaxed with the stakes and the point scoring, but still, you do score points here, and they'll be looking to score as many as they possibly can. Microlander with DRS on freeway, I think. Once again, it's going to be me saying that he's too far back. If you turn it into a drinking game, I think you'd be pretty drunk by the end of this race. Jean, he might be able to have a crack at Liam, though, down into turn 1. He's pretty close into the chicane. And here he goes then, the Alfa Romeo. 4 tenths away without DRS. Now with it, ERS as well. He is absolutely flying compared to Mercedes. Looking around the outside. And there he is. He's around. Is that Freeware?
Freeware has had an
Freeware's
issue.
come off in the Dunlop.
Yeah, that's going to put Microlander, Yoda, and Sindako into provisional podium positions here. And, of course, Liam is very, very tight to the rear of Jean even still. He's on those hard compound tires right now. Not going to have nearly as much pace compared to the mediums, but they will bring him longer in this race. So we'll have to see how that pans out between these two later down the line. But Freeware now 5.5 seconds, Unicorn, is how far he dropped back off those front 3. And we've seen this happen with him before, having fantastic starts and first stints to these races. He gets onto that second set of tires and things fall apart. I think we can remember Russia. That happened in the Endurance Series.
Yeah, I mean, I said earlier, you got Microlander. He's been putting pressure on the AlphaTauri driver since this race began, and after 21 laps, and almost 22 full laps here. Well, it is 22 now that the leaders cross the line. It's a lot, and it takes a lot of mental fortitude to get all the way through a 100% race at your maximum pace every single lap, trying to nail each corner whilst managing when you're up at the front. These guys, they haven't had time to breathe. They've had each other bearing down on each other since the start of this race. So when you've got someone on your gearbox for what have we been in this race now, half an hour, 40 minutes, he's finally made a slip up, and it's gonna cost him here.
Well, and the thing with this as well is it's a very long race, Unicorn, is we're not even halfway through. We're on lap 23 out of 53 here. And we've already seen a good chunk of these drivers jump into the pit stop now. Of course, we've had all but 2 racers here jump into the box, of course, for a fresh set of tires. XTXP and Beavis going for the long haul. But, of course, Freeware, 6.1 seconds. He's going to be feeling a little bit of tire wear after a spin like that. He's going to be having a, save and conserve. But this is a long race. There's 16 drivers on it, and that means any one of those 16 drivers can make a mistake at any given moment here. And it's, as you said, it's a very long race. We're coming up to that 50% marker, which is where we'd see these racers normally finish. But they're going to have to go and do it all over again because it's a 100% distance race, of course. And it's been a few weeks now since these racers, and a good chunk of these racers are our return customers, of course. As I say, a lot of these guys, they haven't had a chance to jump into a 100% distance race since we did Russia. And it's been nearly 3 weeks, I believe, now.
Yeah, and it is a different beast. Alex Bitter just made a lovely pass on the inside of XTXP through Spoon. The traction on his tyres going on. But yeah, Gadwin's pointed out in the chat that the long race also has the other effect, that it gives Freeware plenty of time to catch up and make up for that spin. So it's not over for Freeware. He can still recover. He can still potentially win this race. 6.5 seconds down on Sindaku. He's using a lot of fuel as well. He's got a yellow warning light.
John's had a big issue here. He's got some traffic coming through. That's going to be Darian Alfie getting into 8th position as a result of Jean's mistake. And it's just as we said, these mistakes, as these tires get older, just the same as well, we might see more. Beavis and, of course, XTXP doing a good job right now. We saw XTXP quite close to the rear of Alex Bido a moment ago. He is dropping off significantly as Alex 6.5 seconds away from Jean. Now they're both on much fresher mediums. However, Jean with that issue in the gravel trap going to be feeling a little bit of tire wear. Yoda, the only driver within a second of Microlander, and yet again, it's not even enough for DRS presently. And these drivers are really going to start to expend battery power here. Microlander, Yoda, and Sindako all dancing around the 10% to 20% region. And look at the tire strategy differential on this grid. You can see mediums, hards, different tire life on all of them. And we've got a yellow There's an issue. I believe that is going to be Cactus, who's had a problem out of the hairpin.
Atom as well through Dunlop. And Striff, you mentioned tyres, but it's interesting to me that Freeware and Jean are both on these fresh mediums. So they've had issues just after coming out of the pits, and again, Atom's had another issue, it seems. He's going to let the top 3 pass now on the outside, going into the hairpin. But yeah, Freeware and Jean both on these 5-6 lap old mediums, and they've just come in, and maybe they're just not connecting with them as well as they did on the medium, the soft compound tyres, sorry. So maybe something on that as well. Rackety has found Beavisk. Beavisk on a completely different strategy started this race on the mediums, whereas Rackety's just come onto a fresh set. So Rackety's going to have the traction advantage here.
I was just going to say, yeah, he's coming out of the woodwork. Coming out of the woodwork here just to catch up. He wasn't there a moment ago, and it's the tire life that's really giving him some good pace right now, especially. It's 4 lap versus 24 lap. I mean, we're presently on lap 5 for Rackety on these tires, and it's 25 for Beavis, as of course the leaders have already begun the next lap of this campaign. That, I do believe, we'll call it halfway, and that is Adam out of this race, and we'll have to see where it happened. I think he may have...
I think it's in the pits.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's in the pit lane here. Okay, it is. It is. I don't know why it always has to give us a yellow flag. Rackety now. Getting a move done on Beavis into turn 1. Very clean from him. Not a lot that Beavis can do with the pace differential there. And Adam, after a difficult drive here in this one with no setup, can't blame him. He has retired the car and is out of this one. So 15 drivers remain here as we're at the halfway point. It's been a very, very good race here so far. Not too much action brewing, but of course all of these racers being patient. As Jean with Darian Alfie now, we saw Jean struggle, but he's got some good pace. He's got a little bit of fresher rubber. He's on those mediums with some good delta time in comparison to the hards. And Darian is looking to be under threat here from the Alpha.
Yeah, and I feel for Atom retiring from this race. He's had a string of bad luck over the past few weeks. I think he's just coming off the back of a broken wrist injury, so I imagine the amount of practice he's been able to put in over the past month or so has been fairly reduced with that injury, so he's just trying to get back on the horse, as they say, and you know, the casual sort of way that these endurance races are, you know, first come first serves. Anyone, a good way for him to get in a lot of practice. He's had pretty much a full 50% race here, but he is now, unfortunately, as Jean looking very close to the rear of Darian Alfie. I don't think 130R is the place for the move, but
things are very tight in the top of the field as well. You have Microlander, Yoda, and Sindako all within a second of one another, and there goes Darian with an issue. Jean with a real fast think there. Dispatches the Renault after that mistake, and he's going to have that DRS just to salt the wound here, as we're going to jump on with the front of this grid now. Yoda very tight to the rear of Microlander as we head our way out of the hairpin into Spoon.
Yeah, these guys, Yoda is now doing exactly to Microlander what Microlander was doing to Freeware. And Freeware, despite those qualifying times, doesn't seem to be able to be catching up with the front 3 right now. We'll have to see if he can come back into this race a little bit later. Maybe a safety car could be exactly what Freeware needs. But here we go, Yoda up the inside of Microlander just before 130R. He's used a lot of his battery to get there, but battery well spent when it gets you into P1. Is Microlander going to have DRS to answer it? Obviously, he's going to have the DRS, but is he going to be able to use it to get past the McLaren, who is now having to burn through the last few bits of his ERS now around the outside? Microlander into turn 1 retakes P1. So it's interesting that Yoda decided to go for that move.
Lesson learned there, I think, for the Albanian. I don't think he'll make that mistake again, because of course he got that overtake done into 130R here. Best case scenario for him, just keep things super tight to that Red Bull, coming through that chicane, get that DRS, get it done into turn 1, and perhaps pull away with that DRS. Of course, Microlander will have the opportunity for a switchback coming into turn 1 in any case, or through, you know, the following lap into turn 1 should Yoda stay within DRS range. But things are quite tense for these drivers in the top 3. Freeware not faring as well as he would have liked considering where he was running at the start of this race. He is into 4th position. He began this race with a fantastic lead out in front, and now he is fighting his way back to the front 3 spots.
Yeah, he's on his own right now. So, if Yoda and Microlander and Sindaku as well, to an extent, keep battling, that might be Freeware's saving grace here. He has caught up half a second in the last lap, and I can only put that down to Yoda trying to make that move around 130R, making it successfully, and then switching back down into turn 1. So if that sort of thing keeps occurring, it might bring Freeware back into this race without the need for a safety car.
Yoda sticking with Microlander now, and he had that great run on Microlander. I think he really had a good opportunity to just hold and come through into that turn 1, and now he's stuck behind Microlander for an entire lap. You got Sindaku, who's going to be really hungry to catch up to this fight because it's wins on the table for these 3.
Yeah, and it being reduced corner cutting stringency, I think the only person on the track right now with a penalty from corner cutting is Remco Van Putten. There's a few people who've got 5 seconds for speeding in the pit lane, etc. But none of these guys picking up any 3 seconds for off tracks because of the relaxed rules in terms of how much of the curbs you can use, and in some places it's a little bit more realistic than the strict corner cutting, but it's much more abusable around some things. Like we saw, I want to say Remco's qualifying lap where he almost removed turn 16 from the equation.
I want to talk about one thing here, is just the difference in tires for 1 second. You have Beavis and XTXP on serious laps with those mediums. 28 laps, soon to be laps, 29 laps should they not get off them. Actually, no, they're on the 29th lap with those tires now. So yeah, they are going to be pushing quite long on these mediums. The big question is, are they going to push them enough to go for a one-stop to softs, or are they going to go on to another set of hards here? And that's I think they're going to be going for softs.
It has to be softs for sure. Otherwise, they've stayed on them for too long. Because these guys who have come on to the mediums from the softs at the start of this race, they did, what, about 19, 20 laps on the soft compound tires plus the qualifying. So these guys on the 29 laps on the mediums, I reckon in 3 to 5 laps we'll see the pit window open for them in terms of getting onto some soft tires and then really being able to push the pace back up for themselves, and that's going to put pressure on the guys they come out behind. And Beavis is really in a prime position to put the likes of Darian Alfie, who's on aging hards, Liam on aging hards, Jean, who's had a few issues with his mediums. So he could look to climb back up this grid with those soft tires that I imagine he's going to go on to sooner rather than later.
A lot of things spaced out right now. Everybody on different strategies. We'll take a look at the stops real quick. You can see XTXP still and Beavis, the only 2 drivers not to stop in this one. We've had drivers go as far as 3 stops in Cactus's case. Of course, a couple drivers like Alex, Remco, Rez, they've had to stop twice. Majority of the grid, though, on that one-stop strategy. Let's look at the fastest lap right now. Fastest lap is currently held by Remco Van Putten, the Dutchman, there in 13th position for the AlphaTauri team. That 129.6.
Yoda has just caught Microlander pretty substantially. He was just out of DRS range, and now he's well and truly back in it. He's now half that gap to the Red Bull ahead of him and is up into P2. Well, still in P2, but up on time to the car ahead of him.
Things are going to get quite tense for these guys soon, I think, as these tires start to wear down. Of course, you have 10-lap mediums, 11-lap mediums, 12-lap mediums for these top 3 right now. 6.4 seconds to Freeware behind. Freeware has been very consistent, and that means that he is right on par with these racers, as we saw on that first stint. He's not gaining time, but he's not losing time. He's basically at the same pace. He needs a life raft to pull him and reel him back in here, and the name of it isn't DRS. I think he needs a safety car to get that position back, or to get close to this podium positions. things have not gone his way, and it is, in my opinion, Russia all over again for him, except we've had a few less spins. Of course, 31 out of 53 laps. My name is Striffim, hailing from the Great White North of Canada. Of course, we have Unicorn here from the UK. If you're enjoying the stream and you're new, help us out. Hit that follow button, because we do a ton of racing. We got Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays with a ton of league action. 3 races on Thursdays alone. And of course, the Endurance Series, which would normally follow along with those Formula 1 weekends. But of course, things got a little bit out of shape last week with Tier 1 having some connection issues. So we postponed things to an off weekend. And here we are. Yoda within half a second of Microlander.
Yeah, well, without F1 this weekend, this is a pretty good way to get that F1 fix for this weekend without the what do you want to call it? A real life F1 race, but the digital world, and these top 3 and everyone else on this grid have been putting on a pretty displayable race, and a very enjoyable one to watch. And Rez, he's come onto some fresh softs, so he thinks he can get them to the end. I think 21 laps is doable on those soft compound tires, so I'm interested to see Beavis right now 31 laps on those mediums. He is going to be coming in the next few. I reckon it's either going to be this lap or the next that he decides to come in. If not, maybe not too confident in the soft tires longevity and his ability to preserve them, maybe. We've also only ever seen one VSC here. We haven't seen a full safety car, which hasn't played with the strategy at all.
Sindako is just keeping that pressure on Yoda, keeping the pressure on Microlander. It's just a hard-fought fight between these 3, having to keep things extremely focused in the front end. It's a fight for wins. It's a fight to see if you're going to get that 25, 18, or 15 points, of course. And we have a yellow flag through Sector 3. I think that's a retirement.
Yeah, it's Rez in the pit lane.
So Rez has just said, I'm finished with this for this week, of course. Hate to see it. Suzuka.
Ooh, Sindaku having an issue through turn 9.
Yoda's going to be really happy about that. Unicorn, it's provided him with a really good chunk of breathing space. Nearly 7/10 of breathing space, I think, compared to where Sindako was in comparison to where he is now. But Yoda needs to push. He can't fall out of that DRS Ranger. It's all going to be for nothing here. He needs to really pound the tarmac here and get onto the rear of that Red Bull coming through into turn 1, because if he loses that DRS, it could be crucial for Sindako's recovery out of that spin.
And speaking of DRS, Alex Bido in 10th place right now. He hasn't had the greatest race, Suzuka not proving to be his best track, but he has crawled into the DRS range of Darian Alfie. Darian Alfie himself has struggled a little bit in this race, currently in P9, so point scoring position for the Renault driver, but he's now got a very, very impressive driver in Alex Bido. Darian Alfie, he's had a good week so far, but now Alex Bido looks to come and try and ruin the party a little bit, come past him, knock him down into P10. The traction of Alex Bido looking up the inside, coming out of Spoon, not going to make it there, but around the outside down the crossover straight, and there he is, P9 for the Spaniard, doing it before the DRS zone. Are we going to see a similar situation to what we saw with Yoda and Microlander, where Darian Alfie is about to get DRS on Alex, and is that going to put the Renault ahead? Although Alex out of the chicane has got some brilliant traction.
Yeah, Alex Bido, 16-lap-old mediums, 19-lap-old hards. There's going to be a little bit of a pace differential here. Alex Bido with a very good pace, of course. Darian Alfie has great pace, just the same. Cactus now has unlapped himself when it comes to the situation with him and Rez. He's made his way into 14th position. And one thing I have to say is I love the commitment here for Cactus. Cactus making his MRL debut, theoretically speaking, of course, in this 100% endeavor. He hasn't had a lot of league racing experience, but it's a great way to get your toes in the water for a little bit of league racing. We've seen a few drivers do it here in the Endurance Series, and it is a really long race. And for Cactus to be in 14th position right now, although a lap down, a ton of respect to him. He's made it 35 laps out of 53 here, and it's his first time doing this, so big up on Cactus. That's what we love to see here in the Misfits Racing League, so hats off to you, sir. Jean going a little wide, coming down through Spoon. He's had a spin. How does he recover it? He gets things back under control. Neatly done from him. Let's check in with Yoda.
Yeah, not only is... Well, Jean is now under pressure. A lot from Alex Biddo, who's already made one move coming out of... or into 130R. Now it looks like he's going to have to be a little bit later, and it's going to be down into turn 1. But Alex Biddo, we've seen him have good traction out of this chicane before, but he's not had that same ability this time. He's nearly lost it, and he's lucky he didn't crash that into the pit wall if he hadn't recovered that. Beavis now finally coming on to presumably soft, getting off those old mediums. I think XTXP will be thinking along similar lines as well.
34 full laps on the mediums. Wisp on softs, Beavis on softs, XTXP. Let's see what he does. He has stayed out, so he's going a lap longer than what we just saw out of course, Beavis. See how that pans out for the Racing Point. Yoda, within half a second of Microlander. Will he have the run to get it done? Is the big question. I don't think he will. Microlander is showing very consistent pace, holding on to that lead of this race.
Yeah, we did see Freeware, though, really controlling the pace. And speaking of Freeware, he has been slowly catching up to these guys. He's brought down what was a 6-second gap to 4, but I think that might have something to do with the fact that Sindarko has been dropping off a little bit from the front too. He's now down 2.6 seconds after that little slip we saw him have earlier. We've also got a nice little battle forming for what is P6, I believe, with Jean looking at Liam and Alex Biddo just behind them, late on the brakes for the Ferrari, and these three are going to have it down towards turn 1, and Darian Alfie isn't too far behind them either.
Darian Alfie's going to be happy about this, and the thing is, with Liam and Darian Alfie, they're on these hard compound tires. Jean with a quick flip to the... Wow, that was quite quick from Jean to get ahead of Liam there coming down into turn 1. Alex Biddo had the front row seat to that action. That's what we like to see. It was clean. Nobody did a 180. Lovely stuff. Wisp right now. He's on the rear of Remco Van Putten coming down through the chicane. He's on the inside. He's going to get the switchback done to the inside even before Remco has an answer for this. Is he going to have the DRS to salt the wound? Yes, he is, but Remco with a great exit here. Will the DRS be enough for Wisp to hold on to this position? Remco Van Putten, we know how he likes to defend. He has a look to the outside with a weave back to the inside now. Wisp holding through in 11th position. This is a very good battle we're having unfold here as these drivers are going to be looking to catch up. 22 seconds the gap to the points.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether they think they can catch up. Obviously, Wisp on fresh softs, he might have a shot, but either way, it's a long race, and I'm sure they're just looking to have a little bit of fun battling each other on track. Wheel-to-wheel racing, always a joy to be a part of and also to watch as well. So they are going to continue to go at it, I think. But it is Alex Biddo now looking at Liam. I think these hard tyres might be sort of betraying Liam a little bit. He's lost out to Gian down into turn 1. Now Alex Biddo is going to have to try and look at a piece of that action, but without any ERS, Liam is able to hold him off this lap, and as a result, Alex Biddo's had a little bit of a struggle through turn 1 because he thought he was going to get past, but it hasn't happened.
Well, Mikau, I'm sure in the chat helping us out, keeping an extra eye on things, looking real hard at Alex Biddo the same way he did in Tier 1. Alex Biddo, definitely somebody who, like I said earlier in this broadcast, nervous, I think, here in Suzuka, doesn't want to have lightning strike twice through that first sector. And as we move ahead, Yoda is still just keeping that pressure on the Red Bull. It's a half a second gap between these two, and it has been for a long, long time. Alex Biddo now coming out of the hairpin, clouds settling in here, but I know it's just for show. Things aren't going to get wet that I know of, and I have to say the weatherman and me were pretty tight for this one, considering I'm hosting things over here. But you never know. We saw what happened, of course, with the safety car dynamic the other day, when the safety car actually brought rain into the equation. when the drivers had no idea the rain could potentially be coming. I don't know if that can happen on custom settings or not, but we haven't really had any safety cars to provide us that, perhaps, well, that possible dynamic here.
Yeah, and it always throws caution into wind when something like that happens. It really throws drivers off, especially when you think that, because obviously with this one we're doing the real life sort of forecast, so they kind of predict what they're going to see. And if you just practice for the dry, I've experienced it before where you've got a race where everyone's expecting dry weather and it gets hit with wet and everyone's very lost, but those drivers who are more confident in the wet really love it. But it's Yoda on the rear of Microlander. He's looking at 130R, but he's not going to make the same mistake twice, is he? Where is the timing line? I think he's done it before the line. There's the line. I think that is.
I think he has done the same thing here. You can see the DRS coming out of Microlander, but one thing to talk about here is the energy in reserve for these racers. Unicorn, Microlander with half of what Yoda has in reserve, and guess what he's done here? He has put Microlander in a position to further burn off that battery, and Yoda has a ton more in the tank.
Yeah, Yoda was the one without that battery not too long ago, but now that he's got it, he's got the upper hand in this fight, and there's not too many laps left for Microlander to recharge that battery, which is pretty difficult to do around Suzuka, which is a fairly high-speed circuit. There's the hairpin where you can charge it, and into the chicane, and turn one as well, but there's not too many really heavy braking points compared to some other circuits on the calendar, and it's a bit like Austria, where it's fairly difficult to recharge that battery. Not as so, but yeah, Yoda really picked his moment there. He's learnt from his mistake, like you said earlier, and now he might be in a position to sort of control this race, control the pace up at the front, and that is what he needs. Freeware as well, still closing on Sindaku, closing in for that final podium position.
Things are very intense at the front for this win right now, and one thing to talk about is John leading that train still in P6. Microlander now, he's going to be looking at the inside of Yoda. Yoda, a little bit later on the brakes, lunges a bit ahead, but it's going to be Microlander with a supercharged run out of the final chicane here. With that DRS overtaken full utilization, you can see Yoda, excuse me, as it has jumped me to Sindaku, we can see Yoda here with still a very good portion of energy, and he is now just rubbing his hands together. He's letting Microlander push and push to stay away from this McLaren, but the McLaren is rubbing his hands. He's got that energy in reserve here to make pushes when he needs to, and he's really giving Microlander an issue here when it comes to this battle of ERS.
Yeah, the only thing Microlander's got, he's got one lap fresher tyres, and with battling, obviously that increases tyre wear. And we'll have to wait and see whether that becomes a problem. I shouldn't think it will. Yoda knows exactly what he's doing. He knows what his strategy is, and he's stuck with it, I would imagine. But it's interesting to see. The battling's not going to help them.
Alex Biddo is so hungry for positions here. He has Liam ahead of him in P7. We saw how tight he got to the rear of the Mercedes coming through turn 1 there. He's still sticking quite tight coming through the S's here, and he's just looking for any kind of window to jump through here on this Mercedes. We'll look back to Yoda now. He's got a good run on Microlander coming up through 130R, and this is where we've seen it done between these two a couple of times now. And there we go, Microlander very early ahead of the detection zone, and I don't think that they're going to give him the DRS. They are! So he gets the DRS, very cheeky move there, but he broke quite quickly. I don't know if he'll have enough to get it done. He does not have a lot of energy deployment at his disposal right now. He's going to get alongside, but Yoda, lunging ahead, keeping things clean, is going to stay ahead of this Red Bull, and I don't think that was the right call out of the Red Bull team right there for Mr. Microlander. Let's jump on with Alex. Very tight coming out of Spoon. He's on the rear of that Mercedes. It's Liam under major threat.
Yeah, Yoda late on that brakes was an excellent defensive maneuver, because obviously Microlander expects that he's going to just take the racing line and just hug the inside, having to back out, and Yoda just carrying the speed around the outside means that it lets him just stay ahead. But now, like you said, Alex Biddo tight on the rear of Liam. He's got DRS, but Liam is going to have it on the car ahead as well, so it's not a huge advantage for Alex Biddo, especially when Alex has next to no ERS. But That's not to say Liam's got much more. They are both in pretty much single digits, now in the low teens. Jean ahead of them. He's on much more. And this cloud coverage and the colour of the track here, it's getting so much darker.
Well, things quite tight in this midfield. Really the only thing to keep our eyes on right now. Wisp is within a second and a half of Van Putten, but of course Van Putten, a superlative defender, as we've seen all season long through Club Division as well as Tier 1. Let's take a look on with, of course, Jean's rear view camera here. He's got Liam coming at him. Alex Bido, Darian Alfie, all in the train, and I imagine he checks that rear view quite often considering his position. He is 17.4 seconds away from P5, and these drivers all want to get some extra points. Alex Bido, with a couple of wins under his belt here in the Endurance Series so far. He won Spain, he won Brazil, so he has had a lot of experience in this Endurance Series, and he really enjoys these races, so I imagine he definitely wants to get further up to where he was before. He started this race in P5. He's presently in 8th. You can look at the position changes now on screen.
Yeah, and Striff, Yoda is starting to use that battery to sort of drag out a little bit of a gap between him and Microlander. This is what I was talking about when he's now in control of the pace of the front drivers. Alex now DRS, but 0 ERS in the tank. He has absolutely nothing to play with, almost running into the rear of Liam there through turn 1, and there's a yellow flag in sector 2. That is his teammate Wisp pointing the wrong way, coming out of Spoon.
Oh, he's in hot water here, that Ferrari. He's got a massive amount of damage on that front wing. He's trying to get things turned around. He's got fast movers flying through. He even bashes the rear into that wall for good measure, and we're going to jump on with his teammate now, coming down through the first and second Degner. He's still hunting down Liam. XTXP's dispatched Wisp now. Wisp finally getting things back going. We're going to jump on with Microlander just the same, as Yoda is in the lead of this race. He has no battery but the DRS. He comes down into turn 1, and these drivers are just fighting lap after lap, not giving each other any opportunity to make a mistake. And if they do make a mistake, Sindako will be right there to pick up the pieces. And guess who else has come back into the mix? It's Freeware, and he has been pushing. He was 6.5 seconds last time we checked in with him a few laps back off of Sindako, but his consistency throughout after the spin, or the issue that set him back, has been flawless. He has made up a massive amount of time coming through the Degners.
Yeah, Freeware could still, if this was a regular race with penalties, maybe Freeware would have a little bit more hope, but right now he's struggling to, well, he will be struggling to get on this podium. Like you say, he's closing the gap, but he's had such a long time to close it, about 10 laps, and he's closed it by about 3 seconds. So with 10 laps left, I think it's hard but not impossible for him to make it. If he was flawless and maybe Sindaku makes a mistake, maybe Microlander and Yoda race each other back down into their grasp, I think it's possible that we could see Freeware on the podium. Alex Bitter, though, still on the rear of Liam. Just a little tap again.
That was real touch and go. That was real touch and go. We're coming into the hairpin now. Liam has had this Ferrari on his gearbox for lap after lap at this point. Alex Bido, not a driver anybody wants to see in their rearview mirrors, and you know what? Neither is Darian Alfie, and we've got a fight between mediums and hards in this 6, 7, 8, 9 train at the moment, and it's a battle between Yoda and Microlander for energy deployment. You can see Yoda and Microlander at this point in time are back to even Steven on that energy deployment. They're at 19 apiece, and it's Microlander who is, technically speaking, in a better position here because he will be posed to strike with that DRS coming out of the final turn.
Yeah, and I think Suzuka only having one DRS zone sort of plays into its excitement here, as Alex Bido is going to have that aforementioned DRS, but so is Liam. This is what's kept Alex Bido at bay for so long. Liam has got the DRS on the car ahead. Alex looks like the inside. He's not going to make the move. Or maybe he is into turn 2. He thought about it for a second there. Thankfully, he thought better off it, but Beef is into the pits again for the Williams driver. He's currently in 10th place. Maybe an attempt at fastest lap coming out of the Williams garage.
Things have been quite dynamic for the weather here in Suzuka. These drivers may have a threat of rain. We're not entirely sure. Of course, I was given the all clear that it was going to be a dry event. We've seen how that's played through in recent events, though. You and I, Unicorn, of course, for Tier 2 racing action. And I think you yesterday in the club division. Liam still sticking with John. Bido, Darian Alfie, not giving him opportunity to breathe. And now we have, of course, Microlander, who has not yet been able to make the move on Yoda. And they're still both trying to conserve that battery. Because as we move through, we're on lap 45 out of 53. We're moving in through the final few. Well, I say few, but we're still about 8 laps left to go here in racing action around the Japanese Grand Prix. Of course, if you're just tuning in, my name's Stryfium, and we have Unicorn here from the UK joining me as always. And it has been a very fun race to watch, and we absolutely love this circuit. So if you're enjoying, help us out. Hit that follow button. We do it all the time. I think the next race we're going to have on here will be Spa for the MRL EU division. That's Tuesday at 8 p.m. BST.
Yeah, and if we're talking about great and iconic tracks, well, what better to follow Suzuka than Spa? I think everyone who's ever touched a racing game knows what Spa is, and it's a fairly iconic. As we've had an issue, is that Sindaku? It is. He's done it. He's done it. There's that mistake I was on about, and Freeware is now back into the podium positions.
Oh, a big smile across the German's face, I imagine. Yoda, meanwhile, not smiling. He's got Microlander really pressuring him coming out of the chicane. He's going to have that DRS. He's got a snap, though. He's using that overtake right out of the exit, and that can cause a little bit of wheel spin and issues here, but he wants to get a good exit. That traction on the lap fresher tires perhaps playing a bit of a role here, a very minuscule role. I'm not entirely sure. Yoda would be the best judge on this, considering he is now in the rear of that Red Bull. Let's take a look. It's Liam. Alex Bido has made the move ahead into 7th, and he's been looking for it for some time. He's gotten that move done. He's on the mediums, and now he's going to want to fly away to catch up with Jean ahead in 6th. Meanwhile, Liam, Darian Alfie on the hards. He's looking to the inside, coming through the 130R turn here. And of course, Darian with a move to the outside coming into the chicane. This is very great racing. Both drivers leaving each other space, but Darian with a good squeeze. He gets things ahead of that Mercedes, and Liam has lost 2 positions after a stellar defensive drive in P7 inside of 1 lap.
Yeah, Alex Bido up the inside into the hairpin. A little bit of contact between the two, but Alex was well within his rights, I do believe, to be where he was and position the car how he did, and he just squeezed it around the inside, and it was very effectively done. He got the better exit, and I think that left Liam a little bit vulnerable to Darian Alfie. The run down into Spoon wasn't as good, and we can see that drive out of Spoon into the long straight into 130R, and that's just what Liam didn't need at this stage of the race. Not too many laps to recover from what is now a 1.2 second deficit on the cars ahead.
Yoda putting his car into the rear view of Microlander here, perhaps causing Microlander to maybe cost himself a little bit of time. I don't know. It looked like he had a late lunge to the inside. Maybe he saw that McLaren wanted to make sure he covered him off. But of course, Microlander now, he is having this Albanian of Yoda in his rear view for some time. And look at the energy deployment here. Microlander, 20% dancing around that level. We have Yoda coming through, dancing around double that amount. And this is something that Yoda's been able to do consistently in the rear of that Red Bull, is maintain a little bit more energy deployment in that battery, giving him a good lunge out of that final turn. And we've seen it all race long, but of course Alex Bido now, DRS, just talking about it. He is looking to catch up with Jean, and he has been within a second for some time now. Jean on a lap fresher rubber. But of course, Alex Bido has been a very good racer here through this Endurance Series season, with a lot of wins under his belt in comparison. He has been a very consistent driver, and we'll have to see what he's able to do with still a good portion of racing left in this one.
Yeah, and I don't know. Alex Bido, he's just got no ERS in comparison to Jean ahead of him. Whereas Yoda, like you said, he's been charging this battery for some time, and I think we've seen him do it once already, where he just passes Microlander in a fairly standard way that you would expect a move around Suzuka to be done, and then he uses that ERS that he's gained over Microlander to just control the pace, keep himself ahead. He's now got a 30% battery advantage over him. As Beavis gets retired from the session, of course, to VSC. Not a full safety car. In the same place we saw Alex come out during qualifying.
Well, that's something that we've been waiting to see all race, is a full safety car. I believe this is our third virtual safety car. At the very least, the second. I know that.
Second, I want to say. I want to say we've only seen two.
Long race. I'm starting to lose track of how things began.
Hopefully someone can correct us in chat. I want to say two. My money was on two, say VSCs.
Yeah, I thought it might have been the third, but I think I'm going to have to be in agreement with you here. I think that may have been our second VSC. And, of course, Alex Bido, Jean, things are quite tight. Jean had to respect the Delta, and this is going to give Alex Bido a very good opportunity for a run into turn one. Jean holds him off for now, but Alex Bido, ooh, that was real scary for the Alpha there. He almost had a major mistake having to jump on those brakes to respect that Delta. And now Wisp is going to advance on Beavis into 12th.
It looks like most people are in agreement that there has been two safety cars, so we're not going mad here in the commentary box. But Yoda still very close to Microlander. 5 laps to go. Not getting the traction that Microlander got out of that 16th turn though, so losing a little bit of time down in the run to turn one. But Microlander kicking up a little bit of dirt on the outside. It's going to slow him down a little bit.
Yeah, Yoda very tight there, close to inheriting some positions. We're going to jump on with the Spaniard of Alex Bido now as we come through out of Spoon. Jean, a little bit cleaner through Spoon than Alex there, I have to confess. But of course, Alex is going to have that DRS opportunity coming down through out of that final turn into turn one, and that's going to be a very interesting sight to see here. Will he be later on the brakes into the chicane? He gets on them. He's tight to the rear of the Alfa Romeo. Things are within half a second at the moment. He's got a good run out of that chicane. DRS now on the rear wing, but the energy isn't there for him. And now we have Remco Van Putten leaving the session. He's had a disconnection issue. He's presently in 10th. So we'll see if he's able to get back into things here. Beavis has had an issue as well. Actually, he's had an issue in retiring the car. He has now left the session. Jean doing well to stay ahead of Alex Bido for the time being, as Liam, a 128.597, now the freshest, fastest lap for this campaign.
Yoda is playing a fairly risky game here, charging his battery a significant amount. He's just dropping back. He's managed to close it down a little bit through the chicane, but he's falling back. There are now 3 laps left to go in this Grand Prix, and Yoda now with 70% battery compared to Microlander's 30%, so he's got that 40% advantage. Now, I reckon we're going to see a move in the next, either this lap or the next. I don't think he's going to leave it to the last lap, because he's going to use this battery not just to overtake, but also just control Microlander's pace and keep himself ahead.
Sindako in the Renault now, wheel to wheel with Rackety as we make our way down into turn one. This could be the excitement everyone's been looking for. Of course, Sindako using that outside curbing gets a good wraparound on this McLaren, and it's Sindako with a ton of traction on those softs, getting ahead of Rackety, who's going to begin to struggle on these medium compound tires. I feel we're at 30 laps for a lot of these harder runners, and this could provide Sindako with a very good opportunity. He's 23.3 seconds off. How much are those tires going to play a role? We'll see what he's able to bring things in. Of course, there's a little bit of racing left here. We're on lap 50 out of 53, so potentially counting the present lap, we'll have 4 laps to the end here, as Microlander will make it 3 when he is leading the race ahead of Yoda. Of course, he's got 29% on his battery. Yoda, meanwhile, is only missing 20% of his battery. He's got a significant amount in comparison, but Yoda really needs to start thinking long-term here for this race win. He needs to get ahead of that Red Bull. Of course, if you're just jumping in with us, thank you so much for tuning in. My name's Stryfium, joining me is Unicorn, and if you're looking for a ton of tight racing action, we do the 100% series every weekend of a regular F1 race. We're just making up a race now due to some technical difficulties last week out. But of course, we've got a fantastic racing league on display, 5 divisions on display here on the stream. Hit that follow button if you're looking for a ton of racing. We greatly appreciate all of the support we've had from everybody tuning into the races. We love you guys, so thank you so much to everybody who's been following along for all of the racing action here on the Misfits Racing League channel. Yoda, so tight to the rear. Microlander, so much energy in his reserve here. Microlander not really in the same position. Yoda has really been showing some solid consistency. He spoke to us before the race. He said that he wants that win, and now we've got a yellow flag here popping up through turn 1, and it looks like Alex Bido. Alex is off. He's had an issue around Suzuka, and he's got a very good portion of damage on that front end plate. And when I say good portion of damage, I mean the end plate is gone. Him and John appeared to have come together, and Alex Bido, lightning has struck twice for him.
He is not going to be happy that he is hearing the Alex is off words famously spoken again. But Yoda now on the penultimate lap, still behind Microlander. He has not got long to make this move. He's using his battery a little bit more now, but he's still behind, and he's leaving it very late.
We're on the penultimate lap of this race. He's got a ton of battery in deployment. These drivers have been struggling to pass each other all race long, and I feel like this is a really, really tight position here. Of course, penalties could play a role here. Even with the regular corner cutting, I think we saw a couple of penalties come up, but I think this race has been fairly clean in that regard. So we're not going to see it impact these races nearly the same way we saw it impact some Misfits Racing League division races. But of course, this is a very, very tight battle for the race win here. We've gone through 52, soon to be 53 laps of racing here around Japan. It has been Suzuka, and we are just so grateful for everybody who's been able to tune in with us along the way.
Yeah, it's been such a great race here at Suzuka. I mean, what do you expect from something as exciting and a track as good as Suzuka? Alex Bido hopping into the pits as Yoda around 130R up the inside into the chicane. He's just got...
Oh, and that's what he's been wanting to do all race. He's been wanting to do that all race, but of course it isn't enough just yet because, of course, Microlander with that DRS, is he going to get the move done? Alex Bido there, the back marker essentially in that equation, which is something that is very rare.
Look at the battery on Microlander. Yoda's still got 30%. Microlander's almost out. Microlander's low on fuel. So Yoda's really picked his moment. He's played a risky game, but it's worked out for him. And there goes Yoda into lead of this race on the final lap. Alex Bido has had another issue.
Well, he came out. He's onto those fresh soft compound tires. I think he was looking to maybe get a fastest lap in. I don't know. He's a lap down. He's been lapped. I think it may have all been for nothing. But, of course, Microlander's still tight to the rear of Yoda. This is a fight for the race win. As Microlander, coming out of the hairpin, may not have had the best exit. You can see the energy differential right now. It is less than 10% for the Red Bull. It's over 20% for the McLaren. We're coming through at a spoon now. We're on lap 53. And these two have been doing the tango all race long. Microlander now feeling the pressure. He's had an issue on the exit out of spoon. And I think Yoda may have just called it, as he said, beginning this race. Beginning this race, he said, I'm going for the win here, Striff, and I think he's going to get it. Microlander coming through the chicane, late on the brakes. He's just not close enough. Yoda here in Suzuka. He takes the checkered flag, and Microlander knows he's stepped in it. He crosses second, and Freeware, who was leading this race for a very good portion of it, is looking to come home in third. Sindako now behind him, just coming through 130R, and they're nearly a second apart. So we'll have to see now. Freeware coming through. Penalties more than likely not going to play a role into this equation between these two racers. It's Freeware on the final podium position with Sindako in fourth.
Yeah, a lot of those drivers taking a flag as well. I think Remco Van Putten got demoted due to penalties, I think he was actually ahead of Alex Bido on track, but there we are. Darian Alfie, he'll be next to cross the line coming through the final chicane. But yeah, what a race that was. And Yoda, again, proving that his just knowledge of and strategy of this, the way these races work, and he's just absolutely nailed it here. And he's played Microlander like a fiddle with his ERS management in those final 10 or so laps.
Yeah, Jean takes the checkered flag now, as well as Liam The final driver to do so here around Suzuka. A little bit too much of a weave from him there. And Cactus, the final racer to cross the line there. In 13th position, it was Liam. He caught 8th. Cactus, hats off to him. It's his first time in a league setting. He finished the race, a very long race at that. So big hats off to the McLaren finishing last, although a great experience for him, I'm sure. A great learning experience. There is Yoda, his teammate for the occasion. His countryman, not North Korean, Albanian. It's Yoda with the race win. A fantastic drive from him with Microlander, with a great defense, a great fight with the McLaren in second position, and Freeware there collecting the final podium position. What a good race that was, Unicorn.
Yeah, absolutely stunning driving from a lot of these racers out here. In a 100% race, it's hard to stay in the race, and it's, you know, hard to put on a show for that long, but these drivers have done exactly that. They kept it tight throughout. You know, a lot of these drivers having really great races. Yoda third to first. You know, Freeware struggling a little bit, managing to get on that podium. We got Sindaku and Rakati, and there's a lot of drivers here who've made a lot of positions, actually. Alex managing to finish in the points, a few positions down. His Suzuka curse continuing, and like you said, Cactus's first league race, fairly impressive. You know, beating out some MRL regulars here. You know, Codders, Atom, Rez, Beavisk. So I think he can be proud with that result. But yeah, what a race! What an exciting 100% race. It's Suzuka. It's to be expected. But yeah, brilliant race. Loved every second.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Suzuka, it's Suzuka. It's hard not to enjoy the racing that happens around here. And we had a little bit of drama, a little bit of tight battling, a few spins, but for the most part, it was just a fantastic race, start to finish. Of course, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Greatly appreciate you all tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this race. Of course, we've got a ton of racing action happening here. If you haven't done so already, help us out. Hit that follow button. We really appreciate it. We're going to be up next this coming Tuesday at 2 p.m. CDT, 8 p.m. BST. It's going to be none other than the iconic Spa-Francorchamps. It's going to be the Belgian Grand Prix for the European grid first, but we've got 5 races coming this week around the iconic circuit of Spa, and we hope you tune in. We've got EU, Oceanic, Tier 2, Tier 1, and Club Division coming to you next this week, guys. So, of course, head on over to the Discord, jump on in to never miss any news about the league, the fantastic Misfits racing community. Greatly appreciate all of the support, guys. So thank you so much. Congratulations once again to the podium finishers. We had Yoda with the win. It was Microlander in second, and of course, Freeware after a very dynamic race and a comeback drive after a spin with third. So thank you so much, everybody. That is going to be it for us. We're going to head on over and raid a member of the community as always. But before we go, as always, a couple of finishing messages. Thank you so much.